This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Helping you find emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. What does your future hold? It's time to find out with Psychic Suzanna.
That is exactly where you need to be, right here on 1110 KFAB. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. You can always find us every Sunday night. We're taking a look into your future, into knowledge that you just wouldn't find anywhere else. You can always find us at psychicsuzanna.com or KFAB.com. Both of those have all of the old shows. So you can go back, and if you're dealing with a family issue, you can look it up. We can figure it out. If you have a family member who's an alcoholic, towards the holidays, you want to figure out how to handle them, there's a show we've done on it. If you have a family member that is not loving and supportive to you, we have a show on how to get around that. This show is about answering the questions you have now and you will have in the future by giving you knowledge you can use now and in the future. You can always give us a call, and we're going to be taking your calls. We've got two great interviews coming up. First of all, John Edwards. Yes, the John Edwards that has the TV shows and does all of those great things. He's coming to Omaha. We got him on the phone, and we're going to be talking to John Edwards. Then we also have Nicholas Schnell, who's from Four Winds. That is he's an herbologist, and I got to tell you, pretty impressed by him, pretty impressed indeed. He's going to be coming in at 8 o'clock talking about cleansing. In and out, we're going to weave in and out with your calls. Again, your calls are always available to us at 1-800-543-1110 and 402-558-1110. The show is centered about what's on your mind. So if you have anything you want us to cover, let us know. You can find us at Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook or Susanna Stickney on Facebook and Twitter. Stay in touch. We love staying in touch with you. I love Facebook. It is such an honor to go on somebody when they have a birthday. Do you all do that with your Facebook friends? You go on and you say happy birthday? I mean, can you imagine? I was talking to someone the other day, and he said, I got 23 happy birthdays on Facebook. And he was pretty hyped. Isn't that cool when you can make somebody's day a little bit better with a gentle hello and a gentle hi and a gentle things? It's all about making everybody else's life better. And as you do that, your life gets better. Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with John Edwards. He's coming to Omaha. Get prepared. We're going to have a party.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Today, we have somebody pretty exciting to have on the road with us. It's John Edwards. John Edwards is going to be coming to Omaha, and we've got an inside scoop with the man himself. Welcome to the show, John Edwards.
Thank you for having me.
John, tell me, how did you get started in the work you're doing?
I was 15, and I went for a reading. Actually, a woman by the name of Lydia Clark was doing a house party at my grandmother's house, psychic Lydia Clark, and one by one people went into the room, and one by one people came out of the room blown away, and they just were shocked and stunned by her accuracy. And I was 15 years old and trying to get them to understand that this could not possibly be real, that she was completely making this stuff up, that she was reading their personalities and telling them stuff about themselves that they just wanted to already hear. And they were trying to convince me that, no, that's not what she's doing. So I said to my cousin, okay, I'm going to go, but I'm going to prove to you that she can't read me. And I went. And I went armed with my skepticism looking for the big aha, and Lydia Clark changed my life. She literally told me at the age of 15 that I would be on radio, TV, lecture around the world, write books, and change the way people saw psychic phenomena in a very, very big way. And at 15, that was clearly not anything that was even remotely an interest of mine. So that was my my entrance was having a meeting, having a reading, and then having a life-changing experience.
And then how did you proceed to start doing it yourself?
Well, I was so blown away by her accuracy that things that she started to tell me started to happen, and I started doing a lot of reading, book reading, knowledge reading, going to the public library. And, back in 1985, I don't know when you started doing this or how long you're doing this, but back in 1985, there wasn't a lot of books readily available on the shelves of Barnes & Noble and Borders, let's put it that way. There wasn't an Amazon.com in the way that there is today to give us or deliver us information. So I went to the public library, and I read everything I possibly could on parapsychology and metaphysics, and I was embarrassed at the time to take the books out, to check them out, because they were under the occult section, and that had such a negative connotation. So I would sit on the floor of the public library and read these books every day after school.
Wow.
And what I learned...
That's dedication.
What I learned was that these great thinkers and philosophers, people like Carl Jung, who explored the unconscious and metaphysics. And I thought, well, this is quite fascinating. So then I went back to Lydia and asked her if she would work with me and train me. And she said no. And I thought, well, why not? And she said, you need to find your own path. And
Wonderful.
I did. And I feel like my spirit guides helped to kind of illuminate what I was supposed to learn and who I was supposed to meet and how I kind of went down the path that I did. But I started by meditating. I started by practicing psychic self-defense. And I love psychometry, so I used to do psychometry, and I would work with tarot cards. I love tarot. So I still, to this day, 26 years later, I love tarot. So that's how I began. And those tools, the tarot and psychometry, were what were the keys to unlock my ability.
Now, you have been lecturing. As a matter of fact, I saw you in one lecture here in Omaha, and you're coming back to our Omaha area. We're really glad to hear that. But
Thank you.
How did you start the lecturing, and what do you hope to gain when you do your public speaking?
The lecturing came about, I was invited, probably back in the 80s. I was invited to come to a center and do a speaking engagement for parents who had lost children. And the woman was very, very persuasive, and she said, please, please come. It'll be a small, intimate group of only about 30 people, parents who have lost children 3 years and longer. It'll be exclusive. Please, 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 it would mean so much. So because of the subject matter, that kind of did it for me. I felt like, okay, I could teach, I could help. Well, that event, long story short, turned out to be over 100 some odd people wound up showing up, and she said to me, I couldn't turn people away. She goes, I just couldn't do it. I hope you understand. And that for me was a turning point because it was a horrible experience when I left. I absolutely hated it and said I would never do that again. And the reason being is I went out and I did readings and then I left. I didn't really talk to anybody else. And what I learned from that experience is that I really have to talk to everybody else who's not being read while the person is being read and let them understand that the reading is as much for them as for the person who's receiving it. And that's how I think my true what my calling is to teach people about the subject matter, to do for myself, to do for other people what I did for myself, which is learn about the subject matter, and that's what I hope people to gain. I hope to inspire them to raise their awareness that they don't need to see somebody like myself, but that they can recognize the love that's around them and pay attention to the energy without having to look for it.
Well, I think one of the profound things is that the understanding that there is life after death, what we've always been taught. And for you to come in and have contact with them or someone, it is gratifying. How do we, the listeners, know whether someone's genuine or not? Because we know you're genuine. We've heard you. We've watched you. But how do the listeners know when they're with someone who's authentic?
Great question. And I think that we have to explore the word genuine first, because you could be with someone who is accurate but not genuine. In other words, you could be with somebody who is very good at what they do, but still not be a genuine person.
You're going to have to explain that.
Well, they might not be coming at it from the right place, or they might not be coming at it from a place that's spiritual. They might be coming out of a place that they want to be famous, or they want to make money, or they want to be known, or they want to whatever they want to be. And they might hide behind the words, "It's about the work," but meanwhile, it's about them. So I call that the inner monster, and I talk about that when I write about development. That we have to quell the inner monster, because if you're dealing with the subject matter, you are special. You are special to the point of having these abilities. You have to learn how to recognize that, okay, if you are that special, It's okay for you to recognize it, but not have to tell everybody how special you are. Let the work speak for itself. But the way to answer the question the way that you're asking it is that it's got to be about validation. It's got to be about information. So if you go into somebody who has to advertise, and I don't talk about events specifically about advertising, but I'm talking about their private reading stuff, I have always been of the school of thought that you go to someone by word of mouth because you've heard something about them, and that it's like a doctor. There's a referral in some way. Now, my doctor referred me to someone who was another doctor for a specialty. And even though it was a referral, I didn't like him. So, like, I knew I went to him. I dealt with him. I will not go back to him. His energy, my energy did not work together. So why would a doctor be any different from a psychic? So you might get a referral from a friend of yours and says, hey, go see Psychic Marie. So you go see Psychic Marie, and you go, I didn't really care for Psychic Marie. And then you go see Psychic Joe, and then Joe blows you out of the water. But your friend might go see Psychic Joe and might not think that he's as good as Psychic Marie. We all connect with people in different wavelengths and frequencies. But as long as the process is validated and you're getting accurate information and it's not what I call as New Age BS, you know, all peace, light, love philosophy as information, then I think you're safe.
I appreciate that. I was, just between you and me and everyone listening, I was at an appearance and someone came in whose relative had just died. And they had horribly smelly feet. I mean, I couldn't let that go for a while. I want you to know my favorite statement about death is that death is like taking off a tight pair of shoes. What is your favorite statement about death? Do you have one?
I won't say I have a favorite statement, but I tell folks all the time that death does not yield entitlement.
Say that again. I don't...
does not yield entitlement.
Have to explain that, yeah.
Well, what I mean by that is that a lot of people will sit in front of a medium and they will feel like you owe them something or life owes them something because they lost their fill in the blank. Whatever it is, mom, dad, husband, wife, brother, sister, cousin, friend, whatever that is, they lost their loved one and they're angry and, you know, it's the medium's fault because now the medium represents death in the universe in this scenario. And I've had a lot of people sit opposite me with that kind of attitude that I have to like snap them out of that and be like, okay, listen, this might fly with your therapist, but I'm not your therapist. Like, you're paying me to do this for you, and I need to want to do this for you. So if you're going to give me that kind of energy, I'm not going to want to do it, and this is going to be a waste of your time because I'm not going to do it. So, like, that's my approach when it comes to the subject matter. Okay. And people think that you're supposed to be a certain way. I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be my way, which is me. So that's one of my favorite things to do is to let people know that just because someone, like when September 11th happened, is a great example of it. September 11th happened in New York. I'm from New York, and Crossing Over was being filmed in New York City, and there was this big thing about, do we show the readings that took place in the gallery for the people who had passed? Now, our audience came from the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut area. There were 3,000 plus people who passed, and you know when someone crosses over, right, in the early stages, they're pretty loud to get a message across. And if you add tragedy in on top of that, they're going to be even more loud or passionate to make sure the family knows that they're okay, to try to help create a healing. Now, add in the metaphysical side of it, that Crossing Over is a show that happened to go into syndication about 10 days before the greatest American tragedy, like the technological age, happened. What a great vehicle and messenger that show now becomes as a beacon light for people who are grieving. So now, when that happened, I just said to the executives at the network, here's the deal. I have no problem with you guys showing this. I said, but you cannot celebrate it in any way. And the network guy said, well, what do you mean? I go, well, it would be in poor taste, number one, if you're in any way kind of acknowledging or highlighting it. I said, but on a personal level, October 5th, 1989, was my September 11th. That's when my mom passed. Mm-hmm. To me, that was the greatest tragedy I ever experienced. And I don't think that anybody who lost a relative on September 11th, I don't think that their grief is any more important or significant than my grief was on October 5th, 1989, or somebody else who might have lost their husband on August 14th to lung cancer, or somebody who had their son die in a car accident. That's what I mean by death doesn't yield entitlement and grief doesn't yield entitlement. So in that kind of capacity, it's been something I've spoken about for years. I
want to, and I believe our jobs is to help people to know that there is life after death, that our spirits are around us and they support us. How do you help people understand that they're not alone and that they have their support of those that have gone?
Well, I kind of like to let them know by demonstrating, and by showing it by example. So like I'll make statements and tell them what my belief is, what my understanding and perspective is, and then the demonstration and the validations that come through. And when I say demonstrations and validations, like I don't like fluffy validations. Like I don't like when people say stuff like, oh, he's coming through with a lot of love. Okay, well that's given to me because that's why he would come through. Or when somebody says, oh, I have your son here. Oh my God, he's such a good looker. Well, which mother's going to turn around and say, no, my son was kind of not handsome? Like, so there's certain things that, like jewelry. I hate talking about jewelry. If they give me jewelry, like they want me to bring up jewelry for their family member, they have to describe it. Otherwise, I will not bring it up. And the reason why is we all have jewelry that's passed down from us. It's something that's tangible. So there are certain things that, for me, I find obvious. Like I'm never going to get M for mom or mama. M is going to be a name for me, not a title. So there's certain things that I stay away from. But the things that come through sometimes are not the things that people want to hear. But as long as they're factual and they're valid, that to me is important because those facts will add up. It's like a brick. And when you put all those bricks together, those bricks form a foundation, a strong one. And once you have a strong foundation, you can build on it. That's my focus.
Wonderful. It must be a little bit frustrating to have so many wanting to hear. And that's why we're so grateful you do these public lectures, wanting to hear something about someone they've lost. They're sometimes afraid to approach, but needing validation. It must frustrate you that everyone can't hear it. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I think that we can. There's a colleague of mine, or ours, her name is Suzanne Northrup. I don't know if you know who Suzanne is.
Certainly.
You should totally have her on your show. Suzanne and I were part of the State University of Arizona. Mm-hmm. They did a testing thing, and we were tested at the university level. And the second time we went out there to be tested, the scientific community posed a question to the mediums, of which we were both sitting there, and that was, can you train people to do this? And she answered no, as I answered yes simultaneously. And then the two of us looked at each other, because we were literally sitting across from each other in the room. And I went, Suzanne, you teach workshops on psychic development. How could you say no? And she said, and I quote, mediums are born, they're not trained. I go, okay, but Suzanne, you teach workshops on development. How can you say that? And she said it louder. Mediums are born, they are not created. And I thought, like, okay, well, this is going to be awkward because I'm having this, like, psychic standoff here in front of this, like, scientific community. So we agreed to disagree at that moment. Well, I've shifted my opinion. And when I say I shifted my opinion, I believe that we actually everybody, can actually connect with their family and friends. They can recognize the signs and the symbols. They can learn about it, how they come through in dreams and smells, songs on the radios, lights flashing, symbols, finding dimes, quarters, feathers, whatever their symbolism is. Yes, we can all benefit from that. But I agree with Suzanne now, all these years later, where I say that I believe that what she was trying to say and what she's clarified further on to say is that if you're born to do this work, you're born to do this work. And I think that with the success that Crossing Over had in raising the awareness level and shining a light on the possibility, it also kind of shined a light on people who have an experience and then think, oh, my God, I'm going to do that, or I can do that, or I want to do that, or I want to participate in that. And it caused over the last, I'd say the last 10 years, the last decade, some really not so nice stuff. I don't know if you've come across that as well, that there's some, as the road has been widened, there's a lot of unlicensed drivers.
Oh,
you got to be careful with that.
I understand.
So I think it's very, very important.
And that's why we need to be authentic in who we talk to and always take it inside to see if we validate or don't validate.
Absolutely. Hit your source.
Yeah, hit your source. Thank you again for being on air with us. This is John Edwards coming to our area. I will give you the dates in just a minute, so stay tuned. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Thank you very much for being on air with me.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
This is Life with Psychic Susanna on 1110 KFAB.